Hello there everybody and welcome back to another Swag Sunday. It's your boy LMAC11. I hope you're feeling well, and I hope if you're not feeling well, this video can make you feel a little bit better. Now today I'm going to be talking about letting go. Not to do with the song from Frozen. Just thought I'd throw in a really stupid joke at the start there. But yeah, so letting go, we're going to kind of break it down as we always do into loads of different sections. I'm just going to take a sip of water actually. Got my big Stanley cup as per usual. I mean, when I say letting go, right, I mean in terms of like a lot of different ways. I don't just mean like, letting go of this feeling or that one. We're going to get into it. So the first thing to talk about is, and why I wanted to make this video in the first place, is letting go of people. Now, what I mean by that is, okay, because it sounds bad, doesn't it, letting go of people. I don't mean like, physically like letting go because you're restraining someone or whatever. I mean, friendships or romantic relationships or any kind of relationship you have with someone, getting to a point where you kind of realize this person isn't who they were when I first befriended them or dated them or knew them. Like, they've changed so much to a point that I don't even recognize this person. And the idea of kind of having to let go, in the sense of realizing that you can't have them in your life anymore. So let's talk about it. Right, so obviously we all form relationships, very various different kinds of relationships, and people change, and some people change for the better, some people change for the worse. It really depends on the person. Everybody's different, everybody's unique, everybody has their own journeys that they go on in life, and obviously some go down some really bad paths. Now, you might meet somebody and they're lovely, they're bubbly, they're kind, they're friendly, they're funny, they're all these good things, and over the course of, honestly, it could be days, weeks, months, years, even decades potentially. Obviously I've only been around 20 years, 2 decades, so I can't say that, like, I wouldn't really say decades for anyone just yet. Coming up to, I suppose, some of that. I've got two mates that I've been mates with and known since I was like 11, so that is almost 10 years, to be fair. But anyway, getting sidetracked. Over the course of this time, they can change, and well, they will change because everybody changes, and sometimes your trajectory is like this and theirs is like this, and that's not even me necessarily saying, oh, they become a worse person, because that is the case in some cases. Does that make sense? Case in some cases, I don't know. That happens with a certain amount of people. Other people, they just, it's like you're going that way, they're going that way. You just end up going down different paths. You want different things in life, and that's okay. It's good and important to recognize, I want this out of my life, but that person wants this out of their life, and that person wants this out of their life. It's pivotal to recognize. Pivotal? No, essential to recognize the different things that people want to do in life, and understand that, just because what you're doing is one thing doesn't mean that everybody else wants to do that thing as well. So sometimes, people naturally drift. It happens all the time. Friends, obviously, well, brain fart. Give me 1 second, guys. Obviously, the people that you're friends with in school, you only keep a certain amount of those friends. The rest of them go off, do their own thing. Same with college and university and certain jobs you work. It always happens. You're gonna keep friends for life, and some friends, you're not even gonna keep for like a couple of weeks. Sometimes it really depends. But anyway, letting go of people is a very difficult task, because a lot of the time you notice things, and if you're like me, you forgive but don't forget, kind of vibe. You let things go, you let things slide, and it can get to a point where eventually you let too many things slide, and you end up realizing, actually, this person's made me feel like shit about myself quite a few times now, and you have to kind of come to this decision where it's almost like a crossroads. You have to come to this decision where it's like, what do I do? You've got to think about it. You've got to really think long and hard, and kind of come to a conclusion. And a lot of the time, you will probably realise that this person isn't the person that you met, that you fell in love with in one way or another, and you have to kind of not be around them anymore. Maybe it's because they've become really negative, or they've become bigoted and it's really surprised you, or they've just become nasty, and or in a lot of cases, not a lot of cases, actually yeah, quite a lot of the time, people, their true self always, comes out in the end, and maybe their true self was very different to what you thought it was, and that can be really difficult. But a saying that I have seen that is actually one of my favourite sayings. Sorry, I love saying that in that voice. Is, do you love the person or the idea of the person? Because those are two very different things. A lot of the time we form an image, an idea of how someone is, who they are, in our heads. Hence why I pointed at it. Versus what they actually are. And it's that thing where you forgive them for a lot of things, and eventually it catches up. Now I've dropped a lot of people out of my life. I couldn't tell you how many people I've dropped, and I've become quite, not cold, but like, you know, it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I need to protect my own peace, because I've had it before where I haven't, and I've let someone stay in my life far too long, and I've even let them come back in a few times, and they obviously just haven't changed or matured or anything like that. And then I've thought, shit, why did I do that? I don't know why I went like that. I look like the baby. Sorry, let's go. um, but yeah, it happens. Where you forgive too much, and then you let them back in, and then you kind of realize that it's still not my cup of tea, as you want to use a really generic saying. But it is really hard. It is really, really difficult letting people go, especially because you have these memories with them, and they were such a fun, great person. You really enjoyed their company. You thought, oh, this friendship will last forever. But it doesn't. And that's okay. Some friendships are going to last a lifetime, and some friendships are only going to last a few years. Some friendships are only going to last a few months. When I was in my first year of uni, there was someone that I was friends with, and I realised the friendship was only 9 months long, which is quite short, like, not even a year. But it felt like a long time, obviously. But that friendship came to an end for reasons I won't get into. I'm not trying to make this channel me personally going this and this and this. Obviously, I'll use examples, but I like to keep it kind of vague because I don't want this to be too much insight into my own life. Partly because I just don't think it's necessary. These are kind of meant to be objective videos, kind of looking at things from a standpoint of, what does this mean? What can we do to make it better? All that kind of stuff. Instead of it being like, this is my specific situation. This is what happened. You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to make it really personal to the point where it can come across a bit as trauma dumping. And also, not to suggest that there's anything wrong with sharing your personal experiences. I believe transparency is very important. Honesty is the best policy, after all. But I think in these videos, I don't want to be doing that. But I just thought I'd go on a little tangent and say that. Yeah, it's really hard to let go of people. Especially, I can't even fathom, having to let go of your parents, having to decide, okay, my parents are just awful people. I can't have anything to do with them. That's a decision that I'd never want to have to make. And luckily, I won't have to, because my parents are great and I love them very much. And that's something that I'm very, I was going to say proud or not proud of, I'm very glad for, because I know not everyone gets to have that relationship with the people that brought them into this world. But yeah, so letting go of people can be very hard, but it will always be beneficial. It might not feel it. You might have weeks, months even, where you go, was that the right decision? I have it now. So I dropped somebody out of my life a couple months ago now, maybe 2 months ago, and even now, I still get it where I think, crap, was that the right idea? But the reality is, yes, it was. Without a shadow of a doubt, I made the right decision. I made an informed decision. And I know it can be difficult as well, because obviously you can have mutual friends and stuff, and it can get really tricky because you don't want to make people take sides, but you don't know if they're maybe trying to make them take sides in the person that you've decided to let go of. It can get really ticky. It can get really tricky. Because it is a really complicated thing. It's not easy to just go, right, boom, you're out of my life. It's never that simple. Especially when your lives can kind of intertwine. Not saying that happens all the time with every relationship that's come to an end or person that I've dropped, but a lot of the time it does, because you have mutual friends. I mean, especially if it's like a partner, you dump someone. Your lives can get very, very intertwined depending on how long you've been dating for and how serious it is. But that regret that you feel is normal. And that's another thing to make really clear. Like, you will feel a sense of like, did I do the right thing? But trust me, you did. Everything happens for a reason. I believe in that. I believe in destiny and all that stuff. I think everything happens for a particular reason, and I think that you have to stand by the decision you've made. You can regret it all you want, but you can't change that decision, and that's something that I've had to realise with this recent situation I just said about, realise I can't go back, and actually I wouldn't want to anyway, because I did make the right decision. I did what was right for me. That's not necessarily what's right for them, but this is the thing in life. You have to be selfish. Don't be selfish, as in don't be a dick, but you have to put yourself first, because you're the only person that lives your life. Nobody else lives it for you. So you have to think and go, right, I'm going to put myself first here, even if maybe it does hurt somebody. But in the long run, they'll probably benefit from it as well, because if your friendship's kind of going like that, they might have, worries or whatever regarding the friendship as well. So yeah, that's definitely a point to make. But letting go of people is very hard. And, I wish anyone that's trying to do it right now the best of luck, because it is very difficult. What are we saying for time? We are, okay, cool. Yeah, it is really difficult. But just remember, is it the idea of the person or the person that you love? And don't get it twisted. You'll sometimes get doubts about people. People might piss you off. You might think, oh, what's best for me? That's okay. And, those thoughts can happen without there actually being a need to let go. But you will know when you need to let someone go, because there will be no upside to being friends with them. Like, there'll be no, like, nice, fun banter or whatever. It will just be like, oh my days, this person, I have to see them, and it just, or I have to speak to them. A lot of the time with me, it's people, I end up, letting go of people that are, quite negative, because I'm naturally, I would say, quite a positive person, and I don't really like being around people that just seem to always be complaining about something. I'm not saying, like, you shouldn't complain at all, because there's a lot of things to complain about, but, like, constantly, and I understand, like, everyone has hardships in their life, and I'm not denying that at all, but you shouldn't go on about them to such a point that people that are close to you notice that all you ever talk about is what's going wrong and not what's going right, or could go right, or what you're even going to do. I'm not suggesting, by the way, that you shouldn't speak to people about your problems. Absolutely you should, and it's okay if you speak about it to someone a few times because it's troubling you. I think it becomes a problem when you then don't have an interest in what they have going on in their life. And that's the reason that I dropped this person recently, was because they were a great, lovely person, didn't have anything against them personally, but they weren't what was best for me, in the sense that, I felt like I wasn't being heard, I wasn't being paid attention to, I felt kind of diminished. And that's something you should never feel from any kind of relationship. So that's an important thing to know. Now, I was going to make another point about letting people go. And, oh yes, how to actually do it is the next point to go on to. How do you let someone go? It's a great question, How do we do it? It's really difficult. The reality is, there's a few ways you can go about it. First of all, you sit down with them and have a conversation and essentially go, I don't want to be friends with you anymore. I don't want to date you anymore. Now, in romantic relationships, you have to do that. In friendships, it's a bit different because you can naturally drift from people anyway. But like with romantic relationships, like you literally would have to sit them down and tell them. Otherwise, you'd just be a bit of a scumbag. So yeah, the first point to make is you can, literally sit them down or text them or call them and say to them, yeah, I don't want to be a friend anymore or have a relationship with you anymore for whatever reason. You list your reasons. And if you're firmly set on that idea, don't give in to something that they say, because if that's what you feel is what you feel, you can't help it. So don't let somebody talk you down if you are set on it. Obviously, they might be able to address their behaviour, but the problem is a lot of people, I've had conversations where they apologise and they go, oh yeah, I won't do it again, and then they do it again, and they do something, they don't actually learn, and never, like you can, maybe you have a conversation with them and, they promise to change, you go, okay, give them a bit of time, and if they don't change, then you can go on to one of the other options. The second option is just to remove them on stuff, which is what I did in the most recent situation I had. Just remove them, don't say anything, just go on. The problem with that one is you don't really give them a chance to say anything, and that it can make them feel really shitty about themselves because they don't get an explanation. It's just kind of bang, you're gone. it's a tricky one, because you can have a conversation with them. They're still probably going to feel bad. No one wants to get a message and go, I don't want to be your friend anymore. I don't want to date you anymore. But then no one wants to just randomly get dropped without an explanation. You know what I mean? Now, in my situation, we have mutual friends, and I spoke to those friends about why I did it, and the person ended up basically being like, not good enough, or not. It wasn't quite that. I think it was more like, what was it? It was more like, they sound like kind of bullshit reasons. Which, hey, never listen to somebody that. I like. It makes me glad that I did it. Do you know what I mean? Because don't invalidate my feelings, and that's another thing. Don't let people invalidate your feelings ever, because if what you feel is what you feel, like I said, you can't help it. And I said previously that I wasn't trying to insert myself too much into these things, but what I meant by that wasn't that like I wasn't going to give examples. It was more I wasn't going to go into every specific detail. I'm not going to name and shame the people. I'm not going to go into every single thing that happened. It's more just like a vague kind of overview, if that makes sense. Like, you see what I'm saying? But yeah, so that's the second option, is just not saying anything. Third option. Is there a third? Third option, yeah, just naturally letting it fizzle out. So, let's say you drifted anyway, you just kind of don't make an effort with them, and most people probably won't make an effort back if you're not making the effort. So, yeah, that's the third option. Arguably, probably the nicest one, but it depends on the situation. You've got to judge it based on, how you feel about it. Do you want to have a conversation with this person? Does that feel like the right thing to do? If it doesn't, then maybe you remove them completely. But if that feels a bit too harsh and extreme, then you just keep them kind of in the background. If they message you, maybe you don't message back, or maybe you do and you just are very blunt, and it becomes very obvious that you don't want to talk to them. You don't want to play mind games necessarily, but naturally humans do play mind games, especially with communication and with social media. I mean, social media like changed the game really in terms of all that kind of stuff. Just simply because it just made the way that you could kind of not attack, that's a very aggressive word, look at things and approach them. That's what I meant. It changed how you kind of approach things. So for any background noise, obviously I live with my parents, they're just doing, whatever it is, going downstairs, getting a cup of tea, whatever. But yeah, what was I saying? This is really bad, and I don't edit, so this is, it's just going to be like me just going, what did I say? But, just gauge the situation, is basically is what I'm trying to say. Not every single kind of relationship requires the same method here, is what I'm trying to say. But remember, your feelings are the most important thing, Their feelings matter too, and it's important to care about them, because you might end up making them feel really shit about themselves, and no one wants to do that, really. Maybe some people do. But I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm sat like, that's really awkward. What are we on for time? Damn, it goes very quickly when I film these. But yeah, like, you want to make sure they're okay. So that's why, for a lot of people, I'm sure the messaging or speaking option's the best one. But for me, it sounds bad, but you're kind of just giving them like space to kind of just try and convince you, and I'm someone where I can kind of easily be convinced by people to let them back in when I shouldn't. So that's just me personally, but it depends on how stubborn you are and strong-willed you are and all those kind of things. I'm not saying you shouldn't give people a space to talk about how they feel. That's what's important, but you don't want to give them a space to like not manipulate you, but kind of beg it a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I don't know, maybe I'm being harsh. But yeah, so that's all in terms of letting go with people. Now, in terms of other contexts, I'd say letting go of fears is one of the biggest things you can do in your life. Everyone's scared of something. Everyone has worries. If you don't, you're probably a psychopath, because that's one of the key signs, is that you don't worry about things. But the reality is that majority of people have fears. And the question is, well, how do you get over them? And the answer is, there's a lot of ways of getting over them and letting go of those fears, and that's how it ties into the title of this video. You see what I did there? Yeah. Acting like some really clever, like, idea or whatever, but it's literally just me talking about what the title's going to be. Which you'd hope so. I mean, it'd be weird if I called it like something and then just went on about something completely different. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, letting go of fears or anxieties or stress is really hard, because your brain convinces you that it's the be all end all, whether that be, you know, you have arachnophobia or you have agoraphobia, or I'm just naming phobias that I know, snake phobia, or whatever fear you have, you know, or anxiety or stress. It's very hard because your brain convinces you that it's really important and that it's really scary, and like you feel all tense and stuff about it. So how do you let go? Well, the answer is really simple, but it kind of is so simple that it sounds like I'm just chatting shite, but it's actually the only way you can really do it. Just not giving a shit. Like, and I know that sounds really generic, and it's like that video of Pie Face where someone goes, "Oh, how do I stop worrying?" And he goes, "Just don't worry about it, mate." And it's like, well, that's, you know, not good advice at all. You know, cue that fucking gif of like Lil Yachty going, you know, the one I mean with the computer. Everyone knows that one. I feel like that's like the most popular gif. Well, it's not the most popular, but it's one of them anyway. Waffling. What am I on about? But yeah, like it is a thing of you can do like exposure. So like, let's say you have fear of spiders. So I used to have really bad like arachnophobia. I watched that what's it called, that Harry Potter film as a kid. That scared the shit out of me, like so much so. Even I can still hear the sound when all the spiders are coming down. I still hear, like, I can in my head right now. I can think of that sound. I remember that film scaring me. But yeah, so I don't know if that was the. Sorry, just hearing footsteps. It'd be really awkward if my dad walked in. It'd be quite funny, but it'd probably be really awkward. And also, again, I don't know how to edit, so if he walked in, I'd probably just keep it. Oh, dear Lord. But yeah, I used to be terrified of spiders, like really badly. Again, I'm not picking my nose. And what helped me kind of get over that phobia is, it sounds really weird, but me and my mate would like smoke the ganja in my shed at the bottom of my garden, and there was like in summer, like, so right now there'll be like hella spiders in there, and even in winter actually, all year round there was just like, you know, hella spiders, and I just got used to it. It's like I just, and I realised, I was like, actually spiders are quite chill, you know, they don't really bother you, you know, we'd come in, you'd see them, you'd be like, oh, that's a big spider, well, get away from me. And they wouldn't like crawl on me. I never had it once where one like landed on me and started like, and if they do, you just, you know, get them, move them away. You know, you don't hurt them. I don't believe in killing animals. I think it's cruel. I can't even. I'm the definition of wouldn't hurt a fly. I literally can't even bring myself to do it, and like they're really annoying. But that's another thing. Look at the positives. You know, spiders kill flies. So you know, if you find flies really annoying, which is most people, then spiders are probably quite beneficial for you. But yeah, like, so you can expose yourself is what I'm trying to say. You know, because I exposed myself to that fear. As a sentence, because I exposed myself doesn't sound great, does it? But I mean, in the context of it, I don't know why I need to explain that. Nobody was thinking that. It's just cover all bases. Do you know what I mean? But and even give you guys a warning that I was about to start drinking water. But yeah, like, you know, and since then I haven't really been scared of spiders. Like, obviously, if a big spider just went into my room, I'd be like, and I'd probably go, ugh. But like, realistically, spiders don't get that big. You know, Harry Potter is fiction. They don't get to that size where they're like bigger than people. It just doesn't happen, thankfully. So yeah, so that's one thing you can do, is exposing yourself to your fears. Some fears that can be kind of hard to do, like for example, I used to suffer quite badly with fear of death. You can't really expose yourself to death. I mean, unless you just spend loads of time around in like morgues, but that would just be not the YouTuber morgues. Sorry, that's a trip down memory lane. As in, like, you know, where they keep dead people. Like, obviously, I suppose you could hypothetically go. First of all, I don't think you can actually get into a morgue. I think they'd be like, no, go away. Like, who are you, weirdo? And also, I think that'd be kind of traumatic, just staring at dead bodies. But you know, with something like fear of death, you know, you can't just expose yourself to it in that regard. But what you can do is you can kind of go and you can kind of sit with it. So there's another way of dealing with of letting go of fears is kind of sitting with it. Sitting for a second, going, okay, why do I fear this? What is the actual fear? Because usually with fears, there's an underlying aspect. For example, fear of death is actually fear of the unknown. It's the uncertainty of it. That is the scary bit. Yes, dying would hurt, it can. It depends on how you die. It could be really painful. So that's obviously part of it. Fear of pain, completely understandable. But the actual fear of death itself, what happens when we die, is all about fear of the unknown. And that's something that I truly believe. With a lot of fears, it's usually fear of losing control or uncertainty. Those are kind of two big overarching kind of themes, I suppose, with fears. So yeah, that's sitting with it and just thinking, right, why do I have this and how can I improve it? Obviously, use the internet to your advantage. I'm not, I don't believe in like Googling everything, because obviously it can become a bit of a compulsion thing where you just constantly checking Google. Why do I have this? What's this? What's this? What's this? Like, it can get a bit bad. But watch a video and that is specifically about your phobia and how to get better from it. Maybe even honestly, there's another point: therapy. Just actually go to therapy. Which a lot of men need to do, including myself. Actually, I can't lie. But yeah, that question where it's like 100 men versus a gorilla. What about 100 men versus therapy? I mean, that would be my version of that question. But obviously, that is one way of dealing with it, is actually just consulting a medical professional, a psychologist. I think it's psychiatrist. My mum always says there's like one that's like kind of doesn't have a medical degree, and then there's one that does, and I can't remember which is which. But the point is, you go to an actual professional who is an expert and knows what they're doing. It's like if you wanted to have your car fixed, you wouldn't just like go on Google or watch a video tutorial of how to fix it. You just take it to the mechanic, unless you yourself are a mechanic, and then you could probably fix it yourself. Right, what are we saying on there? Damn, nearly half an hour. This is my longest one yet. Then I suppose you could ask the question, who therapises a therapist? Oh, that's deep. It's like the type of shit where it's, it's always what the dog doing, never how the dog doing. It's just like, damn, just got to think about that for a sec. Well, I'm joking. But anyway, so that's another thing is, just actually speaking to a professional and getting them to help you with it. And other than that, kind of just going, and what? That's the only other option you really have, is just kind of go, Because the more you like fixate and focus on something, the more power you give it, and the more your brain goes, this is important, I need to remember this and think about it. Whereas if you just kind of go, what if? Or whatever. Not what if, because what if is actually what gets you into that cycle of thinking. You kind of go, so what? And just think that. And it's like training your brain. The more you think something, the more your brain goes, okay. And it realises, actually, this isn't even worth all the worry, So that's how I would say, kind of, to let go of fears, worries, stresses. And those are both the things I wanted to cover today. Is there anything else that I can help? Not help, because I don't consider myself like a professional. I'm a professional waffler, I suppose, but I'm not like a professional in the sense that I'm here to like help you guys. And, obviously always go to a medical professional if it's related to medicine, and just a professional in whatever it is that you need help with. But I'm trying to think, is there anything else? No, there isn't, to be honest with you. Yeah, just live life. You only get one shot, one opportunity, and that is what Eminem said. I don't know why I'm doing that voice again, but yeah, I mean, it's so important to remember that it's your life and you got to live it to the fullest, and that's the truth. And it can be hard to remember that a lot of the time, but it is really important to. But anyway, on that note, I'm going to leave it there. I hope everybody has enjoyed today's video. Please let me know down below what you thought. Do you find these videos helpful? Do you find them interesting? Just let me know. Leave a like if you like it. To be honest with you, leave a dislike. Yeah, leave a dislike, even if you don't like it, because then I know, and I'll probably go and cry about it. No, I'm joking, I won't actually. But yeah, subscribe if you haven't already, if you'd be interested in doing that. Obviously, no pressure. I'm not going to, be over here like, you must subscribe now. Like, no, you don't need to do anything. Don't let anybody tell you anything. Nuh-uh, you can't tell me nothing. Will that get me copyright claimed? Surely not. Surely. If it does, that's really funny. Anyway, please do take care of everybody and put yourself first, but also do care about other people, because it's important to care about those around you. Don't be a twat, basically. But anyway, love everybody, and I shall see you next Sunday. Actually, I'm probably going to upload on Wednesday next week another video of me rapping, so check that out. Take care, everybody. Goodbye.